I'm live. It says I'm live. I feel alive. Hello. It is not quite start time yet. It's 4:29, but I wanted to make sure that everything is working before the clock turns and I start this Facebook Live event. And it's 4:30. Hi, this is Elena Aguilar. And I am really excited to try using this format to share some tips and strategies with you for preventing burnout and building emotional resilience. This is a topic about which I'm not only deeply passionate, but I feel completely immersed in, saturated in, because in 2 weeks from today, I will submit my next final manuscript for my next book, which is on cultivating emotional resilience in educators. It's called Onward, Cultivating Emotional Resilience in Educators. And I have been working on this for years. And in the last 9 months, I have spent endless, it feels like, days and hours right here in my office where I'm sitting talking to you right now, thinking deeply, reading and writing and thinking and writing about emotional resilience in educators. The strange thing about this format is that obviously I can't see you. All I see is a green dot. I'm looking intently at the green dot. So if you're out there, perhaps in the comments section, you could use an emoticon or something, or just say hi. It's really an odd feeling to just be talking at the screen. And I know that some of you are there because there's a ticker that has some numbers there. I'm really excited to share these strategies with you. But at any point, if you want to say hi or share an emoticon, an appropriate one, of course, reflecting how you're feeling or how you're doing, please go ahead and do so. And your questions are really welcome. In fact, I can't wait to hear your questions. They might just be, you might just find them answered even in this next book. They might be questions that at the last minute will now provoke me into thinking something new and insightful about emotional resilience. Let's start. Here's the first thing that I want to suggest, that this interest in resilience is sometimes talked about. Sometimes we are interested in the topic or the content because we want to prevent burnout or manage stress. That's reasonable. That makes sense, and yet it's so short-sighted. I think about the end goal of cultivating emotional resilience as allowing us to thrive, not just to survive. The goal is not just to prevent burnout, it's actually to figure out how we can deeply enjoy our work, our teaching, leading, educating, how we can thrive, how we can find meaning and fulfillment almost every day, and ultimately how we can meet the needs of students, because I know that's why we're in this profession. So that's the first thing that I want to say about resilience. Now, what is emotional resilience? Most simply, it's how you rebound after challenges, how you bounce back after adversity. That could be something like it's a Friday afternoon and it rained all day and the kids didn't get recess, which meant you had to stay in and monitor them during recess. And then in that Friday afternoon during cleanup, the paints are all knocked over and a student has an accident. And that's the moment when your principal decides to come in and see how you're doing. You could consider that a little setback, a fall down, a challenge. Resilience is how you get back up, how you rebound. Then, of course, there are the bigger challenges, the big changes that we face, it feels like constantly in schools, because schools are complex organizations that are constantly changing. And whether it is changes in national policy, in state or local approaches to instruction or curriculum or district approaches, or just changes in your school, there are constant changes. And so we are constantly tested, challenged, knocked down sometimes, and needing to rebound. Now, this time of year, you may or may not know, you may very well know, can be the most challenging time of year, actually. There's research on the experience of new teachers. There's a graph that you may or may not be familiar with by the New Teacher Center, which shows the arc of a new teacher's experience and energy. And in the beginning, there is more energy and excitement as the beginning of the year launches. There's adrenaline. And then you start getting more tired and tired. The low point is around the end of October, when Thanksgiving break still feels really far away and you are tired. Now, this is research done particularly and specifically about new teachers. However, I think it really applies to just about everybody. Administrators, I find, have that low point about a month earlier because they started working about a month earlier. But for many teachers, the end of October, and then you've got Halloween thrown in there and all that craziness, is a really hard time. So when I thought about the 8 tips that I want to share with you, that was in my mind. And thinking about the strategies that you could actually start implementing today, tomorrow. I am not going to tell you that much about the why this strategy works. All of these strategies are based in research from social science, psychology, neuroscience, about what helps us thrive and become more emotionally resilient. So I'm going to just tell you the strategies. The first one, the first tip to building emotional resilience is to know yourself. Know what your values are. Get really clear on what your purpose is. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you a teacher? You might know why, but it's possible that it's been a while since you've thought about that why, or perhaps talked with someone else about it. So my first suggestion to you, you could do this today, tomorrow, this weekend. Spend some time thinking, maybe writing or talking about your why. What got you into teaching? What do you hope your legacy will be? What do you want people to say about you? What do you want your kids to say about you in 10 or 20 years? How do you want to be remembered? What are your values? And how do your values influence what you're doing and why? Having that kind of clarity, that understanding, can really help you to feel grounded when the challenges hit and to get back up and keep on going. At any point, if you have any questions or comments either, you can share those. I'm eagerly looking at the little comment box, hoping that something will pop up there. I'm going to tell you the second strategy. Second one is connected to the first one, connected to knowing yourself, and it has to do with knowing about your personality type. There's so many ways in which our personalities influence how we experience our daily lives and our work lives. And I want to just quickly suggest that you explore the Myers-Briggs type indexing. The best and easiest to access and free online assessment is called 16. It's the number 16 personalities.com. And the assessment doesn't take very long, and it'll tell you a lot about yourself. I would pay particular attention to your tendency towards introversion or extroversion, and the information that's shared there about your personality tendency can help you make decisions about your time, your energy, what you do after school and on the weekends that might help you replenish your energy from the week and from teaching, or sometimes might drain it. That's a really powerful way to get insight into both how you experience stress and challenges, but more importantly, how you renew yourself, how you get energy. For those of you who are just joining, I'm Elena Aguilar, and I am sharing 8 tips for managing stress, preventing burnout, and building emotional resilience. And I just shared tip number 1 and 2. And if anybody wants to quickly write in the comments what you remember about 1 or 2 for the new folks who are joining us, because I can see that people are joining, that would be great. I'm going to share number 3 now. So a great deal of the challenges that we face in schools has to do with how we interpret what happens, has to do with the meaning that we make over the challenges we experience. So when one of our students rolls her eyes at us, when we interpret that as disrespect, that sets off an emotional cycle, which ultimately does not build our resilience. It kind of wears us down a little bit. And if we have many experiences, thank you, Elizabeth. She shared tips number 1 and 2, know your why, and your personality type. Thank you, Elizabeth. Back to students rolling their eyes at us. If we have many students during the day whose behaviors we interpret as disrespect, by the end of the day, you know, you can imagine, or you've experienced this, you are exhausted. You feel like all day students have been disrespecting you. And perhaps you feel like your colleagues or your administrators also do certain things that are disrespectful. How you interpret what happens, the meaning that you make, the story that you tell is the secret. It is the key to where resilience is cultivated or undermined. How you interpret what happens. And so just take a moment and think about something that's happened to you in the last few days or the last week that you felt was challenging, that was hard. And see if you can identify how you interpreted that experience, that event, that thing that happened. I'm just remembering so many moments as a teacher where little things happen. Like I'd walk down the hall, my principal would pass me and not say good morning. And that's how I started a Monday morning. And I would think, oh, he just doesn't care about me. He doesn't even see me. He can't even say good morning. That was an interpretation. Now here's the tip. Identify your triggers. That's number 3. Identify your triggers. This is another piece of perhaps homework or follow-up. Go and make a list of all the things that get under your skin. Student behavior, colleague behavior, what your principals or administrators do, all the things that get under your skin. These are your triggers. Your triggers are intertwined with your interpretation of event. But just first get it all out, all your triggers. You don't like it when colleagues come late to meetings. You hate getting emails from your principal at 4 a.m. telling you you've got to do something by 11. All those triggers. Evelyn, I will make sure that we post on here the link for the personality type testing. Number 4, tip number 4. Resilient people and resilient educators, because there is some research on resilient educators, have wide and deep social networks. Isolation undermines resilience. That makes sense. I know you know that. Loneliness is not good for anybody. We need each other. We need colleagues. We need mentors. We need coaches. We need friends. A follow-up step. Invite a colleague whom you'd like to get to know better to tea, or to take a walk, or have coffee, or have lunch together, whatever. Reach out and build another friendship or collegial relationship with somebody at school or in your district or your network or even online. Strengthen your social relationships. That's key. Number 5. Take care of your body. I know you know this, but I'm going to say it again because it's real. Sleep deprivation is a torture technique because it's not good for our mental health. You need to sleep, you need to walk or move your body in some way, and you need to feed it well. Take care of your body, especially around the end of October when you're exhausted and you've been going so hard since school started. What can you do within the next week to help your body get stronger, feel alive? There's a connection between our emotions and our physical well-being. That's tip number 4. No, that was tip number 5. Number 6. Number 6 is to focus on what is working. You could think about this almost as a treasure hunt. Tomorrow or the next day or next week, pick a day and spend all day looking for evidence of things going well. It could be little things like one of your students shows up on time or pulls out his notebook when you ask him to the first time. It could be that you find your favorite whiteboard marker easily and that it still has ink in it. Find all the little things that are going well, that are working, that are okay, the bright spots, for example. The challenge is to turn that same kind of reflection and hunt onto your own practice as a teacher, and to watch yourself and identify all the things that you're doing well every day. To imagine, actually, that you are perhaps an outside entity, that you're a fly on the wall in your classroom, or maybe a butterfly, and that you're watching and noticing and commenting on all the things that you're doing well. Look for what's working in your practice as an educator, in your students, in their behaviors, in what they're doing and learning, in your colleagues, in your administrators. Our minds have a negativity, our brains have a negativity bias. We notice what is not working and our brains latch onto that. We need to retrain our brains to see what's going well. Tip number 7 is a continuance of number 6, but it's a concrete activity. And that is to spend about a week, longer if you want, at the end of every day, making note of 3 things that happened that day that went well, and what your role in those 3 things going well was. So for example, you might note that your 3rd period class went smooth. Maybe they're the ones that are always challenging. That was the thing that went well. And then you need to identify your role in making that thing go well. Perhaps your role was that you stood at the door and welcomed each student coming in. Or you were intentionally calm. Maybe you slept well the night before. You have to link the things that go well with your actions. 3 things every day for a week. What went well? What was your role in it? There's something implicit in there that your actions, that everything that goes well is connected to something you do. It is. Even if it's that a colleague stops by and brings you a latte in the morning. What was your role in making that happen? Maybe that's because you had a chat with her the day before about how hard the end of October is. Maybe it was because the day before she was running late and you brought her kids in from the yard and got them settled in since you didn't have a 1st period class or something. What was your role? Everything that goes well, we play a role in. And now the last tip. And it is connected again to what I said was the key to boosting your resilience, which is how you make sense of what happens, how you interpret what happens. And so that is, once you've identified your triggers, once you're starting to become aware of the stories you tell, to start working on how you can reframe your stories, to expand the stories that you tell, the meaning that you make about events that happen, about a student rolling her eyes, about your principal passing you in the hallway and not greeting you. Pushing yourself to expand those interpretations, saying to yourself, it could be that that student doesn't respect me. What else could it be? How else could I interpret that? What else could it mean? Pushing yourself. Well, maybe she's being a typical 12-year-old, and that's how she expresses frustration. Maybe she doesn't have the language to say that she's upset. Maybe when your principal passes you, he's got something on his mind that's really concerning. Maybe he had a really bad night. He hasn't slept well. Pushing yourself to reframe. These are the little strategies, the daily things that we can do that boost our resilience, because resilience is built, it's cultivated through hundreds of little actions every day. I am wondering if you have any questions, any comments you'd like to share. This would be a great time to share those. I can keep talking and talking about this subject, but I would love to hear your questions. That's okay then. I think going back to the first tip, why are you doing what you're doing? What has brought you into this role? And when you reflect on that, when you get yourself anchored back in that, taking some time to register, to notice what it feels like to have those memories or be reconnected with your purpose, with what got you into this field, and being able to register, hopefully, positive emotions. Implicit in building and cultivating emotional resilience is the concept, the word, the experience of emotion, which is something that we often don't talk about. We rarely talk about in schools, not grown-up emotions. The message is much more, this is a professional context and leave your emotions at the door. And when we do talk about emotions, more often we notice, we reflect on the uncomfortable ones, the frustration, anger, sadness, reconnecting with the emotions that give us energy, perhaps joy, fulfillment, satisfaction, will also build your resilience. And Lisa's commenting that yes, October is tough, and that this is a good night for her to hear these words. Thank you. And thanks for your other comments on here, folks. You know, I think the last thing that I want to say is that there are so many conditions in our schools which undermine our resilience. And Diana had made a comment on here about performance pay and how that's undermining communities, and how people may be less inclined to share because of the lure of ratings and extra money. There are so many conditions which are not optimal for teachers or leaders in our schools. Ultimately, we need to boost our own resilience so that we can change those conditions, because they're not serving grown-ups very well, and we're not seeing what we want to see for kids either. And so we need to boost our own resilience so that we can change the dysfunctional and not optimal systems in which we are trying to teach and lead. And so I think with that, unless there are any final questions or comments that are going to come rolling through in the next minute or so, I'm going to close up. But maybe, as I'm just giving you a moment, I will share. As I said, I'm turning in my manuscript for Onward, Cultivating Emotional Resilience in 2 weeks from tomorrow. And I told some of you I would give you a glimpse into my resilience strategies. So this is my office here, and you can see right there, community, justice, and compassion. Those are my 3 core values. Having those up there reminds me what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. I also have a card up there that was given to me by some educators in Nairobi where I did some work, and that reminds me of my purpose. I have a note to myself. See it right there. Access courage to write this shitty first draft. That's how I keep myself going in the beginning of my writing, because I have a hard time getting that first draft out. And then I've got some inspiring quotes up there on my wall. And over here is the outline of table of contents for the book, and my calendar for the last 14 days of writing this thing. So that was my sneak peek into my own process, cultivating my resilience. The Onward book comes with a companion workbook, which has 1 activity for every day of the year. That's 365 or so activities to help you boost your resilience. And thank you so much for joining this event. Onward.